I met Art and we got married in 65. I met him in 63 or 62, end of 62. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing. Everything. It's so funny, and we were married for about 15 years. And Aussie women and that, they sit around at parties and they talk, oh, how did you meet your husband to be and stuff like that? And how did he propose? And I said, well, he was a very romantic bloke, mm-hmm. but his Australian friends, not his Dutch friends, his Australian friends were telling him, don't you go marrying a Boong, that's how stupid these Australian friends were. They said, oh, you know you're going to marry into the family. Well... Obviously. Yeah. You know.
So
and they were so-called educated people, but dumb. And I didn't know until after we were married for about 15 years.
That this is what had been said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they... and we're the only two that are together still and love, but more importantly, like one another. You know. And he because he worked in television, news reporters and that were saying when Hindmarsh Island was going on, oh, why doesn't Muriel speak the truth and stuff? And Art used to ignore them most of the time. And then he'd say, you know, when he'd get pissed off, they'd say, you know, Art would say, you can spill a drop of oil and that oil will sink down to the bottom, but eventually it will make its way up to the top. And you'll be surprised, he kept on saying. And we were proven that we were correct in our assumptions. We weren't fabricators, we weren't liars. But it took us 9 years in the high courts to do that. And I'm not finished with the government yet because we've never been compensated for that. We were called all sorts of things. And we've got proof. Justice von Duser found us innocent. But it took 9 years. And 9 years is a long time to be berated by people.
What did it do to your morale?
They never, nobody, black or white, could stuff our morale up because we were strong. We come from matriarchs as well as patriarchs. Mm-hmm. And we could always, never mind our voice was croaking and our knees knocking, we would stand up. Our family would say, don't ever be afraid to speak for your justice. And if you speak the truth will set you free eventually. And don't ever let anyone belittle you. You stand up to them. And even in the courting days, before I even met Art, my mum would say, and we'd go to parties and I'd get my boyfriends, you know, when I was about 8 and 9 and 14 and stuff like that. Parents would come and pick us up, drop us there and then pick us up again. Mm-hmm. And my mum used to say, you tell those boys, those white boys or those Italian and Greek boys, that you're a good girl, you know. And I have no idea where I got it from, but they'd come to pick me up and I'd say to them, I'd look them straight in the eyes, hands on the hip, and I'd say, if you think you're going to get into my pants, you got another thing coming. Now, if you want to be my boyfriend and take me to the party, terrific.
Yeah.
Otherwise, get lost.
So, when did you meet Muriel?
When I used to go to a tiny, weeny steps with that steep, tiny little place on top of a shop somewhere, and where the Greeks were hanging out. And
Billabong Coffee Lounge.
but they had coffee mugs and tea mugs and stuff like that.
Without
But they served wine instead of. That was, in those days, there was the alcohol laws that you couldn't drink on a Sunday or whatever.
So they would serve it in coffee mugs?
Yeah.
What was it that first?
Oh, it's a bit hard for other people to understand, but in Holland, I was fascinated by coloured people.
Yes.
From Indonesia and Curacao and all those sort of people.
Yes.
To me, they had a kind of inner character that wasn't in anyone else.
Yes.
And Muriel interested me because she had something that no one there had. It was instantly attracted to her. It's a lot of people have tried to describe what it feels like to say fall in love.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone successful doing any good at it and explaining it. You know, it's something that is you can't explain it. You know, it's really.
Was it immediate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was it that she liked about you?
Pardon?
What was it that she liked about you? Sense of humour, or your?
Well, I don't know. You've got to ask her.
I will.
It was amazing. But he's been the best husband. He was the best boyfriend.
Yeah.
I thought there was something wrong with him. That he mightn't like girls when I first met him and then we started going out and I went out with him for about 6 dates and it was only kiss the hand and...
He's old fashioned.
Yeah, and I mean that was strange because the Italian friends and Greek friends and Lebanese friends and stuff and Aussie guys, they wanted to get into your pants as soon as they looked at you.
Mm.
But Art didn't. And I thought, oh my God, he mightn't be into girls, he might be into boys. I didn't even know what a homosexual was.
But he was the creative type, so who knows?
And it was so funny. And I'd go to work and I'd go home to my mother and I'd say, is there something wrong with me? Because he never even held my hand when we went to the drive-in or wherever, and it was always kiss on the hand.
Yes.
Each week he'd bring my mother a bunch of flowers and he'd take one flower out of that and give to me. It was so funny, and he didn't look the romantic type, but he was. Yeah.
How long before the first kiss?
Oh, about 6 dates.
Wow.
Yeah. And then it was, you know, the typical... at the drive-in, you know, like that, and then...
I mean, people used to say, who's the black whore you were with last night? That
was a terrible thing to say.
Yeah, that was my girlfriend. You know, they did that for years and years. I was always left out of things because
So there was a price to pay
yeah.
for love. Yeah.
But it didn't hurt me a lot, it didn't hurt Muriel a lot. So I thought it was perfectly natural to go around with a person with a different colour, you know. And, to me, I found it very interesting.
Yes.
And Afghans married into Aboriginals. even though they weren't allowed to. They just kept on the move all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is it from that point that your art became focused on Aboriginal people, or was it your art already?
What were you saying? Which came first, one or the other? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, was it through meeting Muriel and then having that insight into Aboriginal culture that led more and more to your paintings exploring that theme, or was that theme already there?
Well, I've never been asked that question. Never. I think it was both. They happened at the same time.
Yes.
Also, people used to say about me, "Oh, that's Vanderbilt. He's always different. He's always got to be different."
Yes.
And it's true. I find right through my whole life, all the things that I've done and I've chosen have all turned out to be good.
But I loved dancing in those days.
Yeah.
And he was a terrible dancer.
Yeah.
He'd be either one beat ahead of you or 2 beats behind. But he used to do the quick step okay. He did the quick step okay.
Timing not so important then.
Yeah. But he's been a good husband and a good father and a good uncle.
Frank, who's a friend of mine who lives in Adelaide,
Yes.
We were friends in Holland, and his father had the idea to migrate his family somewhere in the world. There was New Zealand, there was Canada, a few other places, and Australia was one of them.
Frank said, go and ask, because they did everything together. They'd been best friends since they were 2 and 3 years old.
Yeah.
And Frank said, go and ask your mother if you could migrate to Australia. Now, they had a huge family.
Yeah.
And his mother was absolutely wonderful. His mother said to him, son, if you can make all the arrangements, you could do it. Well, he did. And, of course, she couldn't say you can't go, even though he was just 18. She couldn't say you couldn't go because he'd arranged everything.
My poor old parents, my father didn't suffer a lot, but my mother, the suffering she had. Me just simply saying, can I go with my friend to Australia, and within weeks I was there.
Wow.
Yeah. Now also there was the army. I was in Holland. I don't know what the Navy is or the Air Force, but it's only years you have to complete.
Yes.
And the army was the highest. I can't remember, but I think it was about 7 years.
Really? Goodness.
Yeah. So I escaped it by 2 weeks.
Yes.
Otherwise I would have been in the army for that part of time.